Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Once again, we have a high registration count for this session, so we're gonna give folks a moment to come in from the waiting room. If you could please mute yourself as you enter, that would be much appreciated. We want to ensure we have nice sound quality for today's session. Thank you so much, everyone. Welcome to those just joining us. We're going to wait another 30 seconds or so as folks continue to come in from the waiting room. We'd love for you to mute yourself as you enter. And yeah, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Right, well, I think we have a good group with us, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome again, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this session with the team at Impala. We'll be focusing today on how to put their ecosystem intelligence to work for your organization. Also, a special shout out to anyone who is joining us for a second time. We did a session with Impala last week where we focused on claiming your profile. So let us know if you're interested in that recording because we'd be happy to make it available to you. My name is Kelton Artuso, and I'm the Associate Director of Programs at Philanthropy Massachusetts. For those of you who are new to our organization, we are a membership organization committed to the practice and expansion of effective and responsible philanthropy throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We do this by providing opportunities in learning, networking, access to resources and tools, and community building. And we strive to serve as the bridge between funders and fund applicants for better understanding, efficiency, and impact. As I mentioned last week, our team has been working closely with Impala since the early days of their platform. It's been a privilege to watch the growth and evolution of their platform and to see the concepts discussed in early days developed into the robust tool we'll be exploring today. As you may know, thanks to the investments by Barr Foundation and the Boston Foundation, nonprofits with a Massachusetts connection have complete access to the Impala platform for the next 2 years, and will always have free access to public data beyond that. I'm sure the Impala team will be able to speak more eloquently about the power of their product, so I will leave them to do that and just quickly touch on some logistics before we get started. As always, we encourage you to share your questions, reactions, and reflections in the chat box throughout today's conversation. And there will be a dedicated Q&A time at the end of the session. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please let us know in the chat box at any time. To access closed captioning, please click the captions button on the bottom of your screen and select show captions. We are making a recording of this session and we'll distribute it to everyone on the registration list afterwards. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Danielle Impala.
Thank you, Kelton. Thanks for that warm welcome, and great to see, as you said, so many familiar faces from last week's call to this week. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to kick us off and get started. As was mentioned, my name is Danielle Belanger, and I'm a partnerships director here at Impala. And what that means is I get to have all these calls with folks like you to tell them about the platform and show them the ropes. So just to give a little context of my experience and perspective, before my time at Impala, I was a program officer at a philanthropic consulting firm based in Boston called GMA Foundations. And over my 10 years there, I really got the chance to both work closely with funders and also get to know their grantee partners really well. So as we walk through today, I'm hoping to show you tools that I think you can use and that I know I could have used during my time in that role at GMA. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the agenda for us to get us started. So first and foremost, I know, as was mentioned, many of you joined us last week, but I know we have some new faces with us today. So we'll do a brief overview just to give you a look into what is Impala before we get into the demo. And as we do the demo, we'll do a little bit of an orientation to the platform, but mostly we'll be focusing on building ecosystems and using our lists tool to build ecosystems as well. And the last but not least, we'll go through next steps once we finish the demo. And as Kelton mentioned, we'll have an open Q&A time. I'm joined by my colleague, Simon Dixon, who's also monitoring the chat. So as I present, if you have any questions, feel free to just drop those in and he'll do his best to keep up with them as I'm presenting. And with that, let's just jump right in and get started. So first and foremost, Impala is a groundbreaking new platform that is networking the entire social impact sector and democratizing data access. And how do we do that? We break down existing paywalls and allow permanent free access to all existing 990 information. So we do this in two ways. The first is profiles for every nonprofit and philanthropic foundation across the US. This is a lot like Foundation Directory Online and GuideStar, if you're familiar with those tools, but in one place, and most importantly, always for free. The other way we do that is the ecosystems tool, which we will run through today. And that's an ability to analyze any nonprofit ecosystem anywhere in the country. And as Kelton mentioned as well, thanks to a partnership with Philanthropy Mass and support from Barr Foundation and the Boston Foundation, you all as Massachusetts nonprofits have access to ecosystems for free for 24 months. So when we get off the call today, I hope you'll jump right in and explore it and everything it has to offer for you. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the platform for us today. So I'm starting off by going to impala.digital, and this is where we go and log into the platform. And because already have my credentials saved, I've been logged right in and brought to the main page of Impala. So as I mentioned earlier, we have that search and profile option in the platform, and that's what we're brought to here. So we're seeing here the ability to search from almost 3 million profiles of funders and nonprofits across the entire country. So this is the functionality that is free and always for free, and is a lot like Foundation Directory Online and GuideStar. So you could search by a particular organization, or you could do an advanced search here and select any number of criteria that you might be interested in. I'm not going to go into these in depth. As Kelton mentioned, if you're interested to learn more about that, we can share the recording with you. So with that, I'm going to just briefly orient us by starting with a funder profile, and then we'll move into the ecosystems tool. So I'm going to pull up the Foundation for Metro West profile here. I just typed in their organization name, and then we'll go ahead and click into their profile. What we're seeing here is the profile for a funder, and this is the same structure that you'll see for any funder profile across the platform. It has this nice header structure at the top, and these 5 sections: impact, people, financials, funding, and funding overlap. These first 3 are the sections that appear on any nonprofit profile. The funding and funding overlap are unique to folks who are funders. So for our purposes today, I'm just going to do a quick overview of just a couple of these sections that I think are relevant to our ecosystems conversation, but I really want to spend our time on that ecosystems tool as that's why you're all here today. So we can see here, I'm going to start in this financial section, and because the Foundation for Metro West is a community foundation, they are both a grant maker and a grant seeker. So let's scroll down here, and first and foremost, we can see this funders change graph here. And this is a place to see folks who started or stopped funding this organization in any given year. And let's say we want to see who those organizations are. We can click in and see who those 10 organizations are that has supported this nonprofit in 2018. And let's say I'm a similar type of organization, and so these funders might also have alignment with my work. I can go ahead and add those folks to a list and come back to them later to continue my journey on Impala uninterrupted. So with that, I'm just going to scroll down real quick here. We have some other visuals that I won't go into, but you can come back and take a look at. I just want to touch briefly on this chart down here at the bottom. And this is the funder summary chart. So this is a place where you can see the aggregated historical data of all of the funders who have supported this organization, how much was given collectively, and how many grants it was received over. So again, if I'm an organization that's similar to this nonprofit, I can come here and use this list as a way to understand who are the supporters of this organization, and then add folks to a prospect list if we want to do that, if they're of interest to us. We could also, if we're curious, dig into a list of grants received. This is the individual grants if you want more granularity and detail about the type of support that this organization has received. Let's go back up to the top and just jump into one other relevant section here before we get jumping into the ecosystems tool. So here is the funding overlap section, and this is a concept that we developed that basically says who funds in common with this foundation. So we can see, for example, that the Boston Foundation has funded 58 of the same nonprofits as the Foundation for Metro West for nearly $13 million in giving. We can click in and see who those nonprofits are that they share, and use this as a way to see if we see any of our peer nonprofit organizations on this list, and evaluate if therefore the Boston Foundation might be a potential supporter of mine if I'm already a grantee of the Foundation for Metro West. So if you decide that, you can again hover over their name, and you can add them to a list like this as a way to not have to disrupt your flow, as a way to have them as part of a parking lot to revisit and work on later. So with that, let's actually take a look at that list feature here at the top. So now we've seen a couple of places where we can add to these lists. So you might be wondering, why is she showing me these lists? What are these lists all about? And so lists are a way that you can organize and collaborate on the platform with colleagues to develop either a prospect list for fundraising, or if I'm a funder, to maybe develop an applicant list of folks I want to invite to a new grant program. So we can see my list of lists here, but let's go ahead and jump into one of these in particular and just explore a little bit what that looks like and how it relates to ecosystems. So what we can see here is, first of all, the way to go ahead and share and collaborate on this list is we can click the share button here. I could share it with my entire team, or I can select someone, say I want to work with my colleague Dan to collaborate on this list and develop that shared prospect research. Once I've selected them, I click confirm, and they'll get an email letting them know that I'm sharing this list with them. Other than that, I want to mention briefly that if you're a spreadsheet kind of person, you can also export this list to a spreadsheet and use it that way as well. And the last thing I want to mention here is this. I just want to call attention to this define ecosystem button, which I hope you noticed as I was talking through. So this is another way you can create an ecosystem. We're going to come back to this in a little bit, but I wanted to flag it while we're here as a touch point for our future conversation about it. So we just did a really quick whirlwind for profiles and search and lists. And I want to just mention that all of these things that we just ran through are free and are part of the things that will always be free to you and your organization. So without further ado, I'm going to then jump us into the reason for us all being here together today, which is this ecosystems. So we saw a profile. An ecosystem is basically an aggregation of all of that profile data in a nice, easy to look at visualization of all of the trends. So we think about it in three different frameworks. The first is this landscape markers framework, and that is thinking about an ecosystem in terms of both cause area and geography. So let's say I want to see folks who are working in climate change in Boston. I can run that ecosystem, and as a nonprofit, I can see who all the funders are and use that to identify new supporters. Or as a funder myself, I might use it to identify folks I want to invite to apply to a grant program. The other framework we use is this funders approach, and that's basically using a list of funders. If I'm a nonprofit, that smart prospect list, I can plug in here and use to compare and evaluate across those organizations and help prioritize my outreach. And this last approach here is the nonprofits framework. And that's a way, we know so many of you probably have this mental list of peer organizations who do similar work. You can plug in those list of peer nonprofits here and see who is supporting them. If you're a funder, you could use this as a way to do some due diligence on some applicants that might be coming into your grant program. We're going to start with the landscape markers here, and we'll also take a look at the funder section a little later. So let's go ahead and click into the landscape markers option. And as a reminder, again, we can see that this is by both geography and causes. And so first and foremost here, we can pick from any combination of geography, city, state, or county. For our purposes today, I'm going to go ahead and click into Massachusetts, but you can do any combination of those things. It's really adaptable and customizable to whatever your geographic interests might be. The other thing I want to click into here is the causes. So this is a cause area list based on the IRS's NTE codes. And so we can see here a nice high level list of a lot of categories, but if you want to get more granular, you can also click this caret along the left and select any of these subcategories here if you want to get more specific in your search. For our purposes today, I'm going to go ahead and jump into human services. So we'll be looking at a statewide ecosystem around human services. And then let's jump in a little bit to these advanced criteria. So you could put in a variety of advanced criteria here based on budgets or particular organizations you want to exclude. But of particular note, I want to mention this DAF grants ability. So when you're creating an ecosystem, it will automatically include any grants that were given through donor advised funds. But we know folks think that often those can be a black box. So if you don't want to see data on those DAF grants, you can simply toggle that off here and they will be excluded from the ecosystem. So now we can see at first blush, we have almost 2,000 nonprofits doing work in human services across the state and just over 2,400 funders. So we can go in and click Define Ecosystem and see here some nice additional details about the work going on in this space. So first and foremost, this is the dashboard page that you'll be brought to when you come to any ecosystem. And we can see here also along the left, the funding, the navigation bar that you can use that will also be the same across all of the ecosystems, no matter which framework you use. So first and foremost, we can see here, there's over $785 million in funding going to human services from those 2,400 funders across over 18,000 grants. And those are being awarded to almost 2,000 nonprofits. So we can see here the structure of funding and nonprofits as a way that the platform organizes ecosystems. And we see that reflected over here as well on the menu. So this is some nice high level data if you're just trying to get a glimpse into what this ecosystem is all about, human services in Massachusetts. But let's go ahead and dig into some additional details here to see everything that ecosystems has to offer. So we can use this menu along the left and click into the funding category first, and we'll go to the summary section to start. So the summary section is just like what it sounds like. It's an ability to see a high level overview of the funding trends in this ecosystem. So we saw some of this data already on the dashboard, but I'll just flag a couple places where things might be of interest. So if you're a nonprofit and you are doing work in human services and you're trying to decide kind of what should my typical grant request amount be, we can come here and see the average grant request amount for this ecosystem is just under $42,000 and the median grant amount is $10,000. So if I'm trying to figure out how to right size my request, I can use this information to help guide that as I approach funders. We can also just see here real quick this funding history graph, which basically gives us a nice visual representation to understand that this is a growing ecosystem that over year that we're seeing more dollars being given to these types of organizations. And the last visual I want to just talk us through here is this funder change graph. So this is just like what it sounds. It's telling us the number of funders who started or stopped supporting work in human services in Massachusetts. So if we want to go ahead and see who those organizations are, we can actually click in here and see all those 362 funders who started supporting this work. And if at any point any of these seem like folks that will be a good fit for us, if we're a human services nonprofit and we identify a new potential funder, we can go ahead, hover over and add them to that list that we created earlier and continue on our way. So let's continue into the grant distribution section here along the left. And this is also under the funding category. And this is telling us some nice visuals about all of the grants that were given in this ecosystem. So we can see here grants given by year, grants by size, and then we see a chart here of all of the nearly 19,000 grants that were given across this entire ecosystem. Let's say I'm fundraising for a particular dollar amount, like I'm launching a new project and I just need $5,000 to $10,000 to pilot that program, I can go ahead and click in here to this grants by size list. And not only does the visual on the left update, but so does the list down below. So now I'm just seeing those 3,400 grants that were given in that $5,000 to $10,000 range. And I can see the details about who gave them and who they gave to and what it was for. So I can use this as a way to definitively see who has given to nonprofits in this sector and use that as a way to maybe see my peer nonprofits on this list and see who funded them. And again, just like elsewhere, we can hover over and add folks to a list at any time on the platform. So this is the place to come and see all those individual grants, but let's say we just want to take a little bit of a higher level view. We can actually come into this comparison tool here. And this is the place to see details about all of the funders who have given dollars to this ecosystem. So this is the place to come if you only have a short amount of time to get started on your fundraising research. You could come in here and use this comparison tool as a way to see all of the funders who supported this ecosystem of human services in Massachusetts. So we can see some nice high-level headline details up here at the top. We can see, for example, the Boston Foundation has given the most amount of money and the most number of grants to this ecosystem. And we can see it's working hard. We know there are a lot of thousands of funders that is trying to aggregate data on here. So it's just taking a minute to load as we get going. So this is the place to come if we want to see data on funders who are supporting this work and compare across those organizations. It's also a place, if I'm a funder, where I might want to come and see peer organizations as well. I'm just giving it a little refresh here and we'll see if we can get this to load for us. There we go. So we can see here those 2,400 funders, lots of data for it to load on those funders. But we can see here right off the bat, we have a number of really nice data rich information about each organization who has given in human services in Massachusetts. So let's take the Boston Foundation as an example, and I'll just highlight a couple of these data points and so as not to go into detail about all of them. So let's start first with just taking a look at this ecosystem focus number here. What this is telling us is that the Boston Foundation, just over 10% of its giving goes towards this ecosystem of human services across the state. So it gives us a signal that they have some good alignment with this ecosystem. And so if we are a nonprofit who works in human services in Massachusetts, this might be a good place to understand if this funder aligns with my work. The other place I want to take a look at and call attention to is this grantee change number over here on the right. So we've seen a couple of these different change graphs on profiles and earlier in the ecosystem. This is a way to see and understand how many new grantees those organizations started supporting. So we can see that the Boston Foundation has supported 54 new organizations in this ecosystem. And what that signals to us is that they are likely willing to and are actually awarding grants to new organizations. So if I'm new to them, they might be accepting of that kind of grant request. So you can sort by any of these column headers along the top, depending on what you want to compare across for all of these 2,400 funders. This is the place to start if you're trying to build a prospect list and don't have a lot of time, because these are all of the funders who support this cause and this geography. I'm not going to jump into the overlap section because that's very similar to what we looked at on the profile just a little while ago. But let's go ahead and jump into the nonprofits section here, which is the next section of the ecosystem. So just like we had for funding, we also have this nonprofit summary page. And this is a place to come if you're a nonprofit trying to see where you fit in to get a sense of the sector. So we can see, for example, over the years, this has been a growing sector with the number of nonprofits steadily increasing over the last several years. We can also see some details about the typical operating budget size of organizations working in this space, so we can use this to understand where we fit in. This is also a place where you as a funder come to get some high-level information about how to shape your strategy and what sectors to support. So let's go ahead and jump into the comparison section here real quick. Just like we saw for the funding section, we have a comparison section here of nonprofits. So this is a place where you can come to benchmark yourself against your peers if you are a nonprofit working in human services across the state, or this is a place where you as a funder could come and see uh, do some additional initial evaluation or due diligence on organizations. Again, I'm not going to run through all of the details, but basically this allows you to search and compare across a variety of data points related to their financials, their revenues, and their expenses. So you can do some comparison analysis across organizations and either see where you fit or see how the organizations you're looking at compare. I want to shift gears a little bit. So up until now, we've really been looking at moment in time kind of data points, like static data points. But we created this section here, the growth section, as a way for you to see the change over time that an organization might have been experiencing. So we use this as a way to see how an organization might have grown or shifted over many years. So we can take this first example here in this first row, Tempest Unlimited, and we can see that on a variety of data points, they have grown and changed related to the financials and also their staff size. You can look at these, drill down into any of these categories here along the top, people, revenues, and expenses, to see more granularity about those particular areas for all of these organizations. And that's a nice way for you to either benchmark yourself further and see how other folks are growing and changing in the sector, or as a funder to do some additional layer of due diligence to see how an organization is trending. You can look at these both in whole number values, or you can look at them in percents as a way to more compare apples to apples across organizations. So I want to jump in one last we have one last section here, the insights section. And so this is a place where you can come if you're a funder to think about how to shape your grant strategy, or as a nonprofit to kind of bolster your proposal as you're submitting an application. So it's just like what it sounds. It's the top funding, the top funded cities in this ecosystem of human services in Massachusetts. So we can see here, Boston is the top city that has received support, and we can see details about the total amount of money and funders who are invested in this sector in Boston. And if we're a nonprofit, we could come here and find where we are on this list, where our city is on this list, and answer that question that often comes up in proposals, the description of need, and use some of these data points here to bolster that argument in that grant request that you're filling in. As a funder, you could use this as a way to think about where you want to allocate your dollars and see where there might be gaps that you can uncover with this data. And the same will be paralleled in the top causes, so I won't go into that, but it's the same kind of use case where you can see all of the causes and the sub-causes of human services and where the dollars are going. So we just created an ecosystem from scratch using those landscape markers and using some of those advanced criteria. Let's actually jump back into lists and just run through that process in a slightly different way. So when we are here at lists earlier, we looked at this funder prospects for Greater Boston. I have 13 organizations that I've added to this list. Let's say I want to do some evaluation of those funder prospects to see how I want to prioritize them and to see how they compare to other organizations on my list. And so I don't have to even click in. I can just click these three dots on the right over here and define my ecosystem. And because lists are either made up of funders or nonprofits, those are our two options to pick from in terms of a framework. And because we developed this fundraising list, this is a list of funders. So that's what we're going to click on to generate our list. And so what we're getting here is going to be those 13 organizations, but with all of the default ecosystem settings. So what we actually want to do here is take a minute to go and edit those filters that are standard on the ecosystem. So off the bat, we can see the 13 organizations that I added to that Smart Prospect list. And we can see here what it's doing is showing a second level connectivity. So what that means, it's showing us everyone else who supports these funders grantees. So we can see off the bat, these 13 funders have almost 45,000 funders who fund their grantees. So it's a really daunting list to look at. We really just want to see the information on these 13 organizations. So I'm going to go ahead and toggle that off. As we can see, that then gets us back to that 13 that we started with. And let's click into the advanced criteria. Just like we had advanced criteria for the landscape markers framework, we also have it for the funder section here. And let's say you want to limit it to just look at some of the greater Boston counties. So let's say we want to look at Middlesex and Suffolk County, we can do that. And it'll just show us details related to these 13 funders giving in these counties. We could also narrow it down by cause area, but I'm not going to do that for our purposes today. What I want to really get to as well is this ability to exclude those donor advised funds grants, just like we had on the landscape markers. So I'm going to go ahead and toggle that off, and then we'll go ahead and save those changes. So I just spent a minute, making these kind of fine tuning this ecosystem. And let's say this is an ecosystem of 13 funders I'm going to want to come back to on a regular basis. I can go ahead up here at the top and save this ecosystem. Just fill in a name here and click save, and it will appear back on that main ecosystems dashboard. So you don't have to recreate it every time if it's one you're going to be using on a regular basis. So we can see here the same dashboard that we had previously for the landscape markers ecosystem. And we can see some nice high level data again about the total funding going to support this work, nearly $860 million to over 1,300 nonprofits across these 13 funders that we selected. So I'm not going to run through all of these sections again because we just did a nice thorough review of those in landscape markers. But what I'm going to call attention to is just a couple places where you can look and compare across these 13 organizations. So let's go ahead and click into the funding comparison section. And again, this is the place where we can come and see the data to compare across these 13 organizations, across those variety of data points. And we can see here of the folks I listed on my list of 13, we can see some high level data points about those organizations. So we'll give this a second to load. It's working hard to load all these data points for us. But as a reminder, this is the place where you can sort by any of the data points on the chart as a way to compare across whatever is of interest to you. So we had previously seen some data points around grantee change and around the ecosystem support. So that's a nice way, again, to evaluate funders based off a particular area of interest to see what their alignment is with the work you do. So it's the same chart we saw before, but just with these limited to these 13 funders that we filled in on our list. And if we wanted to, we could sort by ecosystem focus to see their alignment with the work we do. And we can again look at this grantee change number over here as a way to qualify these organizations and prioritize them on our outreach efforts. So the other place I'm going to jump is into the insights section again. A nice way to see if you've landed on the right list of organizations that actually jump into this top causes section here. So you've developed this list of 13 and you want to understand, do they give to the type of work that I do as a nonprofit? You can come in here and see where their money is going, what type of efforts they are supporting. And let's say, for example, that I do job training. I can see here that 6 of these 13 funders support job training programs. And we can see the kind of commitment that they have made to those types of programs. So I could sort by any of these columns here on this list as a way to prioritize and see where my category of activity falls in this list of top funded causes that these 13 organizations support. So we reviewed now both the ecosystems with landscape marker, which we built on our own, as well as building a landscape ecosystem based on that list that we created. And we also saw how to go ahead and save those so we don't have to recreate them every time. So with that, we've given you a really thorough review of the ecosystems tool, and I'm going to go ahead and jump back into my slide deck and transition out of the platform for now. Let's go ahead. And now I hope you're all excited. I hope you are saying, hey, ecosystems is great. How do I get in here and get started? So for folks who aren't yet on Impala with an account, if you haven't already joined, you will receive an email from us from support@impala.digital to get started on the platform. Once you follow the instructions in that email, you will get onto the platform and you can go ahead and affiliate yourself with your organization. So if you work with a nonprofit or a foundation, you can go ahead and claim your organization's profile. And this is really important for 2 reasons. The first is that you can go ahead and make updates to your organization's profile. So say update your 990s or update your cause areas. And the other thing it lets you do is to see things through the lens and perspective of your organization and make it easier to compare yourself to peers in the sector. So those things only really take a couple minutes, and then you're ready to go and explore Impala, the profiles and the search and the ecosystems. But if at any point, either through this registration process or over the course of your time on Impala, you have any questions, we really do encourage you to reach out to us at support@impala.digital. There's a team of several of us who monitor that email, and we'll work to get back to you as soon as possible. We want to make sure you are all getting the most out of the platform and that it's working well for you. So if it's not, or if you have particular questions or concerns, we encourage you to reach out to us at support@impala.digital. And if you're a funder on the call today and you think, hey, this was a great session, how can I share this with folks in my network, particularly my grantees? Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We would be happy to host a similar session for you and your network of grantee nonprofits. And to transition us into the Q&A portion of today's session, I'm just going to run through a couple FAQs that we often hear from folks when we're on these calls. So as you remember, the focus of our call today is the ecosystems, and that is one of our premium features. And it's free to you all for the next 2 years as Massachusetts associated nonprofits, but what happens after those 2 years? So first and foremost, you can maintain premium access by paying a low monthly fee. I'm going to be transparent. We don't have a fee set yet, but the goal and the name of the game is that it will not be cost prohibitive. We want to ensure that everyone continues to have access to the tools they need and the resources they need to do their work efficiently. The other option, of course, is to just return to Impala's robust free version, those profiles and the search tool that provides you intel on every grant given, received, and that really nice funding overlap section that we reviewed earlier today. The other question we often hear from folks is, what if I'm a consultant? Can I still use Impala for my clients? And in short, the answer is yes. We encourage you to reach out to any clients you work with and just confirm permission with them that you are allowed to access their profiles on Impala. And then go ahead and create an account and claim each organization, and we'll work with you to get you set up on each of those clients. So with that, I want to go ahead and open it up for any questions folks might have, and I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And folks are welcome to drop more questions in the chat or unmute themselves and chime in. And Simon, I don't know if we've got any questions that have come up that we might want to share with the whole group in an audio format as well.
Yeah, sure. Lots of questions bouncing around in the chat. One that I just wrote an answer to, but I think it's always important to flesh this out is, what happens after the 2 years? What's the cost going to be? And the first thing that I think is really important to say here is there's not going to be any nasty surprises. We're still figuring it out transparently and pinning down exactly what it will be. But what I can tell you is you're not going to get a big check in the mail. And the other thing is that what we've already committed to is that it will be less than getting a guide style or an FDO subscription. So very much on the low end there. And the other thing is we're very conscious of the fact that nonprofits have tight budgets. And you have more important things to be spending your money on, like salaries. And so we will be including allowances as well for smaller organizations and discounts based on the size of the organization as well. That's really important to us. Another question that gets asked quite a lot is there a limit to the number of users that we can have? And the answer is no. So if you want to have a profile and you want everyone else in your organization to also have their own login, then that's 100% available. You can have as one or you can have 100, as many as you'd like.
I wonder, is all of your data just up until 2019? And how are you updating your data on a regular basis?
Thanks for that question, Marcy. I'll kick things off, and Simon, I welcome you to chime in as well. So we didn't go into it in detail, but all of the information that is on the profiles is largely drawn from publicly available 990s that are from the IRS database. So you all might be aware they're woefully behind and got even more behind during the pandemic on updating their database. The one thing that we encourage folks to do when they get going on the platform is to just go ahead and upload a more recent 990 if you have it. So we're already seeing a lot of folks in Massachusetts who have more updated data and have included 2020 and 2021 990s. So you'll see a lot of that data already more recent and more current than that 2019 benchmark. And the other thing I just want to say is that's a really quick process. We don't want you to have to do all that manual entry. So it's really just 2 clicks to go ahead and upload if you have a more recent one. And then we, within 48 hours, go ahead and update the data on your profile for you. So we really, as Simon said, we don't want you to spend your time doing a lot of this manual entry kind of work on the platform. We want it to be an easy process for you all to update the data and get going. So that, we encourage you to update that information if you have it, so that your profile is as current for both you and for folks coming to see it.
A couple other great questions coming through. I'll just sort of address them in the order that they've come through. So Toby asked, does a consultant have an affiliation with a nonprofit? Are they able to access all the features? Simple answer, yes, you absolutely are. If you consult to Massachusetts nonprofits, then you're included in this as well. And something that we designed specifically for nonprofits and for consultants of nonprofits is that you can have access to multiple profiles. So just let us know, reach out, and we can help to make sure that you can work with your partners to have access to their profiles as well and help to get them onboarded. That's something that we see in demand significantly. Another great question, if you need some help using the platform, feel free to reach out to us after this at support@impala.digital, and we'll drop that in the chat as well. We'll get back to you really quickly. We can help address a more specific need and make sure that you have the support you need. We also have a ton of help desk articles and little videos that can walk you through different parts of the platform as well. And related to that, Dan asked a good question. What if, I don't have a more recent 990 or I file a 990M, but I still want to have grants information on my profile? The simple answer is just email us at support@impala.digital. What a lot of these organizations do is they'll send us a grants list. And then we can help update your profile for you. So just flick us a copy of your grants and we'll help you out there as well.
Any other questions from folks today? I just want to underscore what Simon said, that we're here to help. So I know we covered a lot of ground today and it could feel a bit like a fire hose. So we are here to help if you have questions as you go through. I know that it can be a lot of information to take in one sitting. So we're happy to help and walk through anything that you might say, oh, hey, I know Danielle did this thing, but how did she do it? Feel free to reach out to us and we're happy to walk you through it again and show you the ropes at any point in your experience on the platform.
Great question from Victoria as well. If you're an experiential learner, you want to take this a little more slowly. First of all, there's a ton of resources and Danielle can just drop a link to our help desk here. The second thing is they're also running regular webinars like this. So we have a few on our website. We'll drop a link to those. And so you can go over this a couple of times. And then we can also send you links to some of our key resources as well. Little videos and help desk articles that you can take a look at.
I think Dan has a question related to kind of just geography. So when you're seeing geographic searches on the platform, both in the search and in the ecosystems, that's drawn from a couple of places. It's drawn from both your headquarters as an organization and also from programs that you might list on your profile. So if your programs don't have particular locations, it will draw from your headquarter location for some of those geographic searches.
Okay, can I just follow up on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, when we're trying to put it into the profile, like all of our workshops are online workshops. So it wants us to put in a location, but we can't put in a location in our workshop. So that means to me that people aren't going to find us in terms of where we're working.
So Simon, I don't know if you have any initial thoughts about this, but we're happy to kind of troubleshoot this with you. And we appreciate hearing this kind of feedback so we can figure out how to better integrate it into the platform.
Yeah,
Okay.
Dan, just shoot us an email to support and we'll take a look. I just want to make sure I'm reading all the details and give you a clear answer that addresses all of the details in this.
Okay, will do. Thanks.
So I see a question here about when do you expect improved search function and other functions to be launched? So we did a recent update to the search functionality, but the exciting thing that I can preview for you all here is that we are working on a keyword search. So right now we could search by cause area and geography or by organization name, but we're rolling out an option that will allow you to use some keywords instead if your cause is not does not fit under the existing list that we have on the platform. So that's forthcoming. It's not there yet, but that is part of what we're working to improve on the platform, because we've heard a lot of feedback from folks like you that that would be a useful functionality. So if there's other functionality in the search that would be helpful for you, we'd love to hear that so that we can take it into consideration as we make more of those refinements and updates.
Yeah, Sophia, I just love this question because for me personally, this is something I'm super excited about, but also a bit impatient for. We're all used to using search like Google and using these buckets that the sector is used to, like cause areas and populations. It's good, but it's not quite there. So Danielle and I were literally in a meeting on this today, helping the product team refine it. So it's coming pretty soon. I would guess that, I don't want to say exactly, but probably 6 to 8 weeks if I was being a little bit conservative, but they're working pretty hard on it as we speak. Got a question as well from Kathy about getting the names of staff and emails. So names, absolutely. If you go on their profile under the people section, it will be there. Emails, no. We try to respect people's privacy. If they want to post it somewhere, then absolutely, I'd encourage you to grab it, whether it's from their website or whatever. But on Impala, we protect people's contact details. So no emails, no phone numbers as well. But you can certainly find their names, and then you could do a little bit of digging, for example, on LinkedIn. Just one last shout out. So I think Alex just posted a great link here. So this is the second session in a series of 3 that we're doing with Philanthropy Massachusetts. And next week, we have a really great session about building prospect lists. So how do you go through all the data in the platform, the profiles, the ecosystems, and turn that into a list that you can use for yourself of key, smart, applicable prospects? And that's something Danielle will be running again next week. There's a link here in the chat to sign up, or you can just go to Philanthropy Massachusetts event webpage.
I also just see a comment in here about keywords, and we definitely, please reach out to us if you have particular ideas in mind. We appreciate the willingness to engage and give us feedback on the keywords. As Simon said, we're actively working on it, so we would be more than receptive to hearing from folks about the types of words that would be most useful that we are sure to cover in the keyword functionality. So please feel free to reach out to us at support@impala.digital if you have ideas about that, and we can be sure to incorporate that into our thinking.
Yeah, this is something that's super important. We don't want to be one of those companies that just comes in and thinks they know everything, because we don't. The people that know the most in the sector are those of you working in the sector. So if you have feedback, if you have things that you think we really ought to do, or stuff that you think works well, don't hesitate to reach out, because that support email goes to 5 members of our team. It includes our CEO. So that's something that we really value, and we raise up and make sure that we're working on it and we take it on board directly.
So happy to answer any other questions if folks might have them, either now or over email in the future. But I think it seems like we've hit our stride on questions. So happy to pass it back to the folks at Philanthropy Mass to wrap us up for the day.
Thanks, Danielle. Thanks, Simon. Thank you all for hanging out with us for this past 50 minutes. That was a lot of information to digest. So we will be sharing this recording if there's anything you want to go back and look at, or if you want to mess around with the platform at all. As Danielle mentioned, you will be getting that email inviting you to try things out. So definitely encourage you to do that. I've been doing it myself, and there's a lot in there and a lot of information you can pull out. So very excited to be able to share this opportunity with you all. We do hope that you will join us next week for our final session of this series with the team at Impala. Again, if you're interested in the recording from last week, please don't hesitate to be in touch. You can reach out to the Philanthropy Mass team at info@philanthropyma.org. and one of us can make sure to get that to you. So thank you again, and I hope to see you next week.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.